The Paper Mario games are RPGs known mostly for their unique, memorable cast of characters. At least, some of them are. The first 3 entries have amazing partners, villains, and side characters. But only 2 are the pinnacle of Paper Mario. The great and fabulous Flavio of greatness and fabulousness, and the enigmatic antagonist, Mr. L. For such important and influential characters, they don't show up until pretty late in their respective games. These mascots of their respective games are highlights of the story, and they deserve more time in the spotlight. So how long would it take to actually reach these 2? And I mean properly, when Flavio blesses your crusade, and when you defeat Mr. L in the Woe Zone. We'll find out with a race of Flavio % versus Mr. L %. The race in the Thousand Year Door starts as all speedruns do, with obligatory cutscenes. A few successful super guards, optimal movement, followed by some talking and mafia hits, leads us to Rogueport Sewers. We obtain the first paper curse and leave. You may have seen this trick before. We're doing prologue skip, which, as its name suggests, doesn't really skip the prologue, but just kind of the end of it. Real quick for anyone unfamiliar, the game constantly records your position when you're on land to know where to put you after falling in water, but you have 1 frame after entering a room to dodge it. If you can frame perfectly jump into the water or onto a panel where it doesn't set your position, then fall into water, it'll default to the position 0, 0, which in this case conveniently places us right next to the pipe to Petal Meadows. Chapter 1 will be fairly straightforward. Avoid the enemies as much as possible, grab some items for the road, clear the dungeon rooms, and fail the quiz to get XP. No, this isn't objectively fast, but it's objectively fun. Using items to clear Schwank Fortress, making our way back to Hooktail Castle, once again we just play through fairly normally. This is the most normal chapter in the run, but it is the first chapter, so that's to be expected. Now, Chapter 2. We meet Punio, who is actually just Frankly, and our main goal here is to get the Super Boots. Our route to Keelhaul Key requires us to hit a big switch, so the spin jump is one of the only prerequisites. Somehow I got through this room first try without engaging in battle. They're not that difficult to avoid, they're just really annoying about it. Pick up the first 10 Punies, get a key, get all 101, and I never realized you could activate this trap with only half of your Punies, which lets you get them stuck in this room. But whatever, we don't care about them because we have the Super Boots. So we can just go, that's all we needed. Now back in the sewers, we can once again use the hazard respawn glitch, and one more time to get to Keelhaul Key. And finally, we can... Yeah, so let's not waste any more time here, because I already wasted it. This room is so forgettable, I forgot about it. I need Yoshi, so... Thankfully, those Punies that we left in the Super Boots room were waiting at the door, so we can get back into things with minimal issue. We actually finish Chapter 2 and move on to Chapter 3. For real, the last chapter we're going to start. Flatten some foes, bravely take on the Iron Adonis twins, and finally we have the other prerequisite. I actually got all these hazard respawn glitches on the first attempt for a change, getting us to Keelhaul Key for the first time. We finally made it with everything we need, but now we have the final challenge.
Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me that you built a time machine? Out of it.
This game is still in Chapter 3 state, so no one's here. But the characters and enemies still exist, in eternal purgatory beneath the map. By talking to Goombella the same frame we move towards the loading zone, we can slowly make our way out of bounds past the loading trigger, far enough that we can walk onto the outer seam of the room, follow it along the background, and here we are. Now all we need to do is fall onto Bobbery. Yeah, no problem at all. But now we finally freed the harrowed helmsman, and oh right, yeah, there's also these guys, whoever they are. And finally, we've done it! We've reached the peak of the 1,000-year door. With completely suboptimal gameplay, Flavio has joined us. This is the best ending of the game. We spend the rest of our days traveling the world with the Trader Extraordinaire. On to another game in the same series, if you can believe it, to reach the mighty and powerful Mr. L. Thankfully, this game has mostly text-based cutscenes, so we can skip through them pretty fast, relatively speaking. Once we finally have control, we can immediately save a bit of time by ignoring Tippy and dropping directly onto the first heart pillar. The first chapter, as with the 1,000-year door, is fairly straightforward, but there are some things you can do to save time in the long run. While in 3D, you can chain jumps on this horde of squiglets. You can skip this, but it makes for a worthwhile XP grind to get more attack damage, if you can hit them all. It may disappoint you to know that the Megastar is not worth the time it takes to animate, but that means that level 1 is over pretty quickly. Level 2 is really basic, mostly just optimizing movement. Just enter the second last house and use the pipe to obtain Thoro, and talk to Watchet in the last building. Get Lineland Luigi to build the second bridge, and one of the shortest levels is already done. The third level has some interesting tricks. The first time save isn't really a trick, just knowing to jump under this red tree to progress. This little puzzle usually requires you to activate this elevator system to slowly carry you around. However, if you carry this squig with you up to the elevator and toss him onto the spring, you can bounce off the projectiles it shoots to easily scale the wall with no animation needed. Oh, Chunks is already easy, but you can make him trivial by throwing him into the side and using stylish moves to stall, repeatedly stomping him until he's chunked. At this point, you could take the moving platforms as you're supposed to, but if you're good enough, you can damage release this gerbil to bounce up to the door. I'm not. Finally, in the blue platform room, you could just press 1 and minus on the platform, but why do that when you can land on this invisible floor and flip into 2D to skip the animation? The fourth level is the dungeon of this chapter, so it revolves around keys. Of course, that means there's bound to be some skips possible. The first key can be obtained pretty early by clipping into this corner. You just need to clip in there. Actually, this key can't be obtained early by any means, you just get it normally. Thankfully, the next key is easy to obtain and doesn't require any skips, just walk into it with 3D. At the end, just remember the order 3, 1, 4, 2, and you can reach the last known user we connect. On the ground, all you can do is wait, but a lot of time can be saved by landing back on Fractale's head as he moves, which is a lot easier done by flipping to 3D. And with that, Chapter 1 is done. As soon as we can mash through all the dialogue, we'll be back into Flipside. We don't get a break though, because there's plenty of time to save in the intermissions. We already know what Peach is going to need, so we can just visit our favorite non-Toad chef early and use the return pipe to shave some time. Further time can be saved by stuffing this squig into this hole and bouncing off of it to the ledge. And that brings us to Chapter 2. If you know what doors to go in and which ones are a waste of time, then this chapter can go a lot more quickly. You're supposed to go all the way to the end of this room and back to reach the pipe, but instead you can just position yourself at either side in 3D, flip to 2D, and flip back while on this block. The rest of this level doesn't really have any tricks, but we do get Boomer. Level 2 continues this obsession with doors. You can walk through the front door and ignore everything else, including whoever this is. Enter the last room and activate the switch. This will trigger the room's traps, so you need to make a narrow, heart-pounding escape. Level 3 is the iconic debt-repaying level. After committing vandalism, I'm sure to the dismay of many, we don't actually need to make a single ruby from any of these labor rooms. On the top floor, there's this trick you can do where if you line yourself on the edge, flip into 2D, and... Okay, this bit is probably getting old. This trick doesn't save that much time anyway, so yeah, I just got slim. Just enter the correct code, and... I'm still not sure what this is supposed to represent, but that brings us to level 4. As usual, the final level of this chapter is just meant to be a labyrinth, so there's not a lot of skips that can be done, and the correct route is pretty obvious. Like, I'll give you 3 guesses which way you're supposed to go here. Go on, take all the time you need. During the Merly quiz, you don't actually need to pay any attention to her answers. The real Merle always has a fly around her, and I believe she's always on the left. As if this game needed to be more cheesable. The bosses in this game are the one thing you really don't need advice for. If you find any of these bosses to be a challenge, I envy you. The next heart pillar is right here, and... What, you already knew that? Well, fine. Did you know you can use some 3D shenanigans to pass through these blocks and get an HP up early? Yeah, I didn't think so. Chapter 3 is the much more interesting and iconic Bitlands. Most notable about level 1 is obtaining Bowser with an unorthodox strategy. And level 2 is... Okay, look, there's not much I can do to make a water level sound interesting. Especially when it ends with this. But we did get Thudley, and this gold bar, both of which will be useful shortly. Next is the decidedly less boring tree climb, which normally involves repeatedly switching between Mario and Peach. However, this is where Thudley and the gold bar come in. If you cancel your ground pound immediately, there's a single frame where the game will let you flip into 3D thinking you're on the ground. I didn't know how to do this at first. Once we're inside the tree, we're supposed to climb it again and use the pink and blue switches. But that brings us to the gold bar. The gold bar allows us to perform another glitch, the wall clip. Using a gold bar will simply toss it, allowing you to pick up an item anywhere. If you toss the gold bar against a wall, go slim, fall onto it, and press 1 and 2 to switch pixels right as you touch it, the game will force you through the wall as it tries to unslim you. This can be used to easily reach the switch at the top of the tree. This is so easy it's even worth doing casually. Unless you want to get XP or something, I don't know. If you ever want to do a run of this game involving these tricks, it would probably be a good idea to get practice with those beforehand. More so the Thudley jumps. In Francis Castle, just make sure you go through this hidden pipe early on your way by, otherwise you would need to backtrack. Otherwise, the rest of the castle is pretty normal, except for entering these passwords. I recommend not getting them mixed up, but really, who would do that? The end of the chapter features the first interesting boss. The dating sim. Not Francis, he's still a joke. Back at Flipside, I'll just mention this time save you can do here with another wall clip, and that's about it. We're finally at the last chapter. That we care about, anyway. Of course, this chapter starts with the whole can't breathe in space thing, immediately after a chapter that just had us swimming underwater with no air. Cool game. The first level of this chapter starts off strong with a hold right simulator. Some absolutely peak game design right here. In the second level, you don't actually need to interact with anyone en route, you can just make a beeline to the toilet paper man. Did it just occur to anyone else that we're looking for paper in a Paper Mario game where everything is made out of paper? This Megastar section can actually get you a lot more XP by jumping, since jumping XP stacks. But this is the last chapter we're doing, so obviously I didn't stupidly waste my time on that. Unfortunately, the third level is just more space flight. I wish that was half as interesting as it sounded. But never mind that, because we finally reached the Woe Zone. Like the last level of every chapter, this is a maze, so the biggest time save is just knowing where to go. You have one chance to bounce off of this pig rhythm to avoid needing to switch to Peach, and there's a sick trick you can do to get this chest early. If your 3D meter runs out while performing a Thudley jump next to it, the game thinks you're standing so you can open it upside down. But finally, at long last, the amazing Mr. L. And his incredible invention, Brobot. So, with both of the runs done, which one was ultimately faster? From the moment the save files were started, Flavio joined my party in 2 hours and 56 minutes. As for the amazing Mr. L, he was defeated in 3 hours and 9 minutes. Despite how different the games are and the runs being around 3 hours, the difference was just under 15 minutes. I know there was a lot more to say about the SPM route, just owing to its more level-based nature and most levels having at least something to save time. But going into this, I was honestly expecting the Thousand Year Door to take longer with its more involved intermissions and turnstile combat, especially when I remembered I had to get Yoshi. However, there's a lot of time that could be saved in both runs. In the Thousand Year Door, if you could pull off Blimp Ticket Skip with a super jump off the tracks, you wouldn't need to complete Chapter 2 and you could leave when I did initially. In Super, you could save a ton of time just from cleaner movement, performing the skips I didn't, and pulling off the skips I did more quickly. Based on my measurements, an optimal run of both games would still reach Flavio first, just based on how much time would be saved with blimp ticket skip. But it's amazing how close these are for such different runs. These were both fun runs, being shorter than the full game, but including some cool tricks and plenty of gameplay despite how many cutscenes are in these games. I don't expect any of these to be a real category for their games, but if anyone felt inclined, I'd encourage you to try it, and share how quickly you were able to beat it. You could get a world record. Not that that would be saying much.